Good afternoon, everyone. I'm sure you'll have some questions on the news of the day, but we are going to proceed with a previously planned announcement first. And I am pleased to be joined by Mr. Greg Ebel, Chief Executive Officer of Enbridge, today to talk about increasing pipeline capacity and oil and gas production in Alberta so that we can play an even greater role in North American energy security. The government of Alberta's ambition is to double oil and gas production, and today we've signed a letter of intent with Enbridge to accelerate these growth opportunities and ensure more capacity for oil and gas is available across more than 29,000 kilometres of pipelines in the Enbridge network. This added capacity objective is critical to Alberta and our most important trading partner, the United States. Alberta's oil directly supports more than 50 U.S.-based refineries with direct investment in more than 20 U.S. states and is essential to affordability, growth, economic prosperity, and energy security in the United States and globally. Alberta oil and natural gas is also a reliable and important feedstock for essential products produced in the United States, especially in the Midwest states of Ohio, Illinois, Indiana, Michigan, and Wisconsin. Our first step in this agreement will be creating a formal working group made up of the Government of Alberta, the Alberta Petroleum Marketing Commission, and Enbridge senior representatives. This working group will assess opportunities for shared investment and expanding pipeline capacity, transportation, storage, and new pipeline opportunities in the future across Enbridge's entire network. There will also be a focus on streamlining regulations and permitting approvals and red tape reduction that will include a provincial as well as a national cross-border perspective. This is one example of the items the working group will be discussing. Others include direct engagement with the Canadian Energy Regulator to expedite capacity expansion and permitting and approvals for oil and gas in Alberta and across borders that today are too slow and too cumbersome and in no way reflect the need to compete with impending regulatory reform coming in the United States. Engagement with producers to ensure future capital growth plans align with the intended outcomes from the working group to deliver more oil and gas and keep differentials competitive. We will identify actions our government will need to take to streamline approvals and expedite policy in support of accessing barrels through our existing bitumen royalty in kind program and developing a program for gas royalty in kind sooner. An early assessment of additional Indigenous opportunities and how the Alberta Indigenous Opportunity Corporation could participate in the opportunities advanced by the working group. Increasingly, Alberta's ability to move more oil and gas will encourage producers to increase production and start new capital projects in Alberta in support of our economic prosperity. Recent discussions with oil sands producers identified that over the last year, organic growth in the oil sands was over 7%. These added pipeline capacity plans will require more production and more capital investment in the future. Doubling oil and gas production in Alberta has been a goal of my administration since about day one. Increased production means increased investment, increased jobs, and increased royalties for Albertans. Today's announcement is about our work with Enbridge, and we thank them for their leadership and action in support of doubling Alberta's oil production going forward. The opportunities that they have identified are significant, and now the work begins to advance these in support of our shared ambition. We are also in discussions with the other pipeline companies and look forward to advancing ideas and opportunities that can continue to provide Albertans who own this resource with investment returns and proactive market access opportunities for Alberta's oil and gas assets in the immediate future. Alberta cannot afford to be passive when it comes to providing our energy to North America and globally to the billions of people who today live in energy poverty. We have a responsibility to ensure our oil and natural gas has market access. Actions like this announcement with industry today ensure that we will be active in this responsibility and active in this pursuit with our largest trading partner, the United States, who shares these same values. Alberta's exports of 4.3 million barrels per day of heavy oil, which is almost equivalent to the amount of light oil that the U.S. exports globally today, demonstrates the critical alignment of our North American oil market and highlights our long partnership in support of addressing energy security globally. Alberta accounts for 56% of total U.S. oil imports, enabling them to export light oil to European, Scandinavian, and Asian countries from the United States. The U.S. needs to import heavy oil from somewhere, and we believe we are a far better partner than Iraq, Iran, or Venezuela. This announcement today with Enbridge is about strengthening the bonds with the United States and about increasing production of Alberta's reliable oil and gas. It's also about supporting advancing egress sooner and supporting investment, job creation, and other objectives in Alberta and the United States. The United States' ambition for global energy security and dominance, the U.S. ambition to support affordability and lower energy costs domestically in the United States, and the clear call to action across North America to electrify in support of AI demand includes Alberta Oil and Gas to support these priorities. Alberta will not sit back. We intend to demonstrate our support for the United States via our integrated pipeline network today and tomorrow. And I do want to thank Greg and the entire leadership team at Enbridge in taking this important first step. The opportunities are present, and it's time for our teams to get to work in bringing these to fruition in support of Alberta energy security and enhanced capacity within Canada and the United States. Thank you, and I'd now like to invite Greg Ebel to speak.
Well, good afternoon. Thank you, Premier. Pleasure to be here. As you know, while Enbridge assets today extend right across North America, 8 provinces, 43 states, 1 territory, 3 European countries, Alberta is our starting place for it all. And so we're proud to be headquartered here, and we're delighted to partner with the government of Alberta today to develop a win-win-win solution for our customers, Albertans, and Enbridge itself. Let me first acknowledge the leadership by you, Premier. Appreciate that very much in keeping Alberta growing and a key part of North America's energy security and prosperity. As most of you know, Enbridge plays a rather unique and key role in the continental energy value chain. We were the first to connect Western Canadian oil supplies with key U.S. markets more than 75 years ago, and we've grown with North American energy needs, working collaboratively with our customers, with governments, with communities, and Indigenous groups to ensure safe, reliable, and first-class energy solutions. We have been the partner of choice for a very long time, and we remain committed to being that partner of choice for all our stakeholders. With rapidly growing North American energy demand driven by data centers and AI, the resurgence of domestic manufacturing, we need all of the above approach that includes oil and gas. As we like to say, you can't run a full-time economy on part-time energy. And as the Premier has underscored, Alberta's energy is key to North America's energy security. The world needs more Alberta oil and gas. Over the last decade, Enbridge has invested over $20 billion to support resource development in Western Canada, unlocking new markets right across North America, ensuring that Alberta and Canada receive top value for commodities. That's included growing amount of oil transported on our mainline system from 1.5 million barrels a day to where we are today, 3.2 million barrels today, achieved through low-cost expansions and optimizations. As Enbridge has continuously demonstrated by our optimizing of our pipelines and leveraging our existing footprint, we can deliver incremental capacity in a phased and cost-effective manner, meeting today's needs while continuously looking to meet tomorrow's needs. Importantly, with the benefits of Enbridge's pipes that are already in the ground and our existing right-of-way, our approach is less impactful on stakeholders, communities, and the environment overall relative to large greenfield projects. Enbridge really has a multifaceted super system that starts here in Alberta, stretches and serves demand markets and supply basins right across North America, making the entire continent stronger, more productive, and more prosperous. We're very pleased to be working with the Premier and the province to keep that track record of success rolling along. And because we successfully operate these pipeline super systems, Enbridge is prepared and exceptionally well positioned to work with producers and governments to increase capacity as production ramps up now and right through the decade, delivering economic, scalable, executable solutions that support energy security and affordability. So we're excited to work with the government of Alberta and our U.S. partners and governments on how we can best leverage our existing systems to grow capacity for Canadian and U.S. oil production, supporting growth from the Western Canadian Sedimentary Basin, Bakken and Rockies basins for domestic use, and while also supporting exports to our international allies. As the operator of the largest crude export terminal in North America, improving global access for North American crude oil is a key focus of ours, of our customers, and governments that we participate with. All of this is a smart thing to do. And again, we appreciate the Premier's leadership and support of private sector solutions via government partnerships. Unlocking capacity for both Canada and the United States reinforces the value and the strength of North America's integrated energy system, systems that help ensure energy reliability and affordability for consumers, but also sustains competitiveness and economic prosperity for citizens on both sides of the border. Enbridge is always developing opportunities with our customers and stakeholders to add valuable egress out of the Western Canadian Sedimentary Basin, and we have been recently talking about such opportunities on the main line and our market access pipelines. So we look forward to working with the Alberta government and our customers in developing further opportunities that utilize our existing footprint. Over the coming months and through 2025, we will be sharing more details with you and the investment community and customers as these opportunities firm up in the marketplace. And as we prudently develop our broader projects, we'll obviously be engaging with all the various stakeholders, again, customers, communities, governments, and Indigenous groups. So maybe I'll just wrap up there, Premier, and just by reiterating that we are thrilled to be the Alberta government's partner of choice and our customers and successfully deliver on these opportunities. Thank you again, Premier, and it's clear why you continue to be the first choice to lead Alberta. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now move some questions from the media. It'll be one question, one follow-up. Please state your name and outlet for the record. We'll start here in the room. We'll go to the phone. Emma, I see you lined up. Go.
Yeah, g'day. Emma Graney from the Globe and Mail. Greg, this is for you and also I think for the Premier. When you're looking here, what exactly do you envisage this looking like? Are we talking twinning mainline? Are we talking, sounds more like you're talking twinning rather than building a whole new projects. And then are you going to, commit to not putting taxpayer dollars towards something like that, considering what happened with Keystone?
Well, let me tell you about our approach. Part of the reason why we're looking at the Alberta Petroleum Marketing Agency is that allows us to secure a certain number of barrels on a new pipeline to be able to create the market security that is going to go ahead. And then there's a couple of things that we could do. We could take our oil in kind and then be able to fill that pipeline with that. Or we could act as an aggregator for some of the smaller producers because we have heard that that's one of the complications that they have. So that's the role that we would play, is being essentially the first on the line to send the signal to the rest of the marketplace that this is a pipeline that's going to go ahead and we intend to be one of the producers on it. That, I think, is a way for us to give the security without putting up potentially cash dollars of taxpayers. That's what we're hoping to see. We'll see how the market responds to this. But we have also sent a signal to other pipeline companies that we're prepared to do the same thing. So we hope that this is the first of several types of announcements like this. And I'll turn it over to Greg to tell you a little bit more about what he would have in mind about how to increase that pipeline access on the Enbridge lines.
Thank you, Premier. I think it goes back to the fact that we've been able very efficiently to increase capacity over the last 20 years or so. It's that same kind of thing. We have several 100,000 barrels of capacity additions we think we can take on that are not large builds, that can ramp up as growth ramps up from our producers here. It's a little early to kind of give you all those details, but again, over the next couple of months and throughout the year, I think you'll be impressed, as I always am, by the producers here in the province and their ability to grow. And as the Premier says, yeah, we're not looking for dollars and cents from the government. Obviously, it's about them utilizing the pipeline systems to get the best value for Albertans for the commodities that are produced here.
And then when it comes to production, obviously you're going to have to convince companies to want to actually increase production as well. And there's a lot of uncertainty in the global energy market about where they're going to go with that right now. So do you have discussions with them, and what do those discussions look like in terms of carrots perhaps to encourage more production from that end?
I have been talking about this, I think, since I gave a speech to one of the petroleum congresses that was in town in my first year in office, saying that we want to double our oil and gas production. And so I've made it very publicly clear that that's what our aspirations are. I have spoken directly to the Pathways groups as well, especially with Pathways having an aspiration of being carbon neutral by 2050. We think that'll give us an advantage in the marketplace and allows for us to be able to increase our production in a responsible way as well. And I believe that there were 3 oil sands companies that announced in December that they were dusting off some old plants and intending to increase their production. I think Meg was one, CNRL, and I want to say Imperial. You might want to just go back and have a look if I got that wrong. But there were 3 that announced within a couple of days of each other. So I think the message is getting through. But then, of course, there's all the small producers as well as some of the SAGD operators. And so I would say that we'd be looking across all of our producers to see ways in which they'd be able to increase their production. You have to make the ability to get it to market available in order to stimulate the growth. And that, I think, has been one of the things that has caused bottlenecks in the past. So we're taking that first step with this announcement today, and we hope that there'll be others.
Tyson Fedora with CTV Premier. News of the day. We'll stay on this topic, actually. Just in regards to this announcement, looking at other partners within the industry to seek out partnering with them. You mentioned potentially not even putting that public funding in, but if this is something that progresses forward, we see what's coming from the United States with an incoming president, pro-oil and gas, potentially a change in Ottawa in the next couple of months. Is this a good time to be doing this because of everyone being on board?
It's the perfect time to be doing this. I think that with the change in administration in the United States and a president with a 4-year mandate, a president who I think he colloquially says, drill, baby, drill, I think is how he's describing what his administration is going to be known for. I think that one of our tasks in Alberta is to make the administration understand that for them to achieve global energy dominance, which is what they seem to want to do, they need a partner to be able to help ensure that they've got a product for their own people so that prices can stay low. So from my read on what I'm seeing with the Trump administration is they want both. They want to be able to continue to export their own production, continue to build their own production, but then also be able to provide stable prices for consumers. And that's the role that we can play. As I mentioned with those numbers, the Americans, they consume 20 million barrels a day of production. And they only produce themselves 13 million barrels per day. So they have to get the additional amount from somewhere. In addition, their refineries have been retooled in order to receive heavy oil, and there are not that many jurisdictions you can receive it from. So we are already piped into the American system. We already have the relationship with, I think I said, some 50 refineries across the United States. And just being able to expand on that relationship, I think, allows the Americans to achieve both their goals. So I would say that we're a lot more optimistic about this plan going ahead with the new administration and their outlook coming in. That's part of the reason for this announcement.
With the Prime Minister announcing his resignation this morning, it's something you've called for many months. You've called for an election almost immediately. It looks like that might come in May. Do you believe with this announcement today, ramping up production, that your fight with Ottawa is slowly winding down?
I would say that I have been calling for an election. Whatever internal dynamics the Liberal Party has to go through to get to that point is kind of up to them. But I would have preferred today to see an election call, because I don't think 2 months delay is going to make any bit of difference to how Canadians are looking at this administration. Why do we need an election? We need an election so that whoever is in the chair has a 4-year mandate. And so when we go to negotiate with the United States, there's some certainty about who the players are going to be at the table. So I'm a bit disappointed that we didn't get an election call today. I think that would have been the better outcome, and it would have allowed for the Prime Minister to go to the public and see whether or not they support his agenda of the last number of years. I think the polling results suggest that that's not the case. So we're putting this forward, hoping that it becomes a topic of discussion through the leadership race as well as through the general election. We want a willing and supportive partner with the federal government. It would certainly be nice to have a federal government that wasn't looking at ways of continuing to shut down production and stand in the way of this kind of progress. And so optimistically, we hope whoever emerges successful when this is over is going to be able to keep pace with the kind of production we want to do in Alberta.
Next question.
Adam McVicker with Global News. Premier, how does today's announcement maybe line up with some of the conversations you've had with folks in the U.S., just given the incoming administration's kind of tariff threats? We're still unsure what those tariffs would include.
I'm very concerned. I think from what I am reading on social media and elsewhere, the U.S. president seems intent on putting tariffs in place. And so we're in a position now where we've got a lame duck leader with no immediate plans to leave, with no resolution to who is going to be the bargaining partner until, I think it was suggested, as late as May. So I believe it's up to myself, the other premiers, to make the case to the Americans ourselves in the absence of federal leadership. And so that's why I'm going to the inauguration. I'll be staying there for 4 or 5 days. I hope to be able to put forward the case that I made today about how we are the Americans' best friend and trading partner. We can provide the resources that they need to be successful, and that we are also their biggest consumer. We buy $293 billion worth of products from the United States, which is more than Germany, the UK, Italy, France, and Vietnam combined. So we shouldn't be in the line of sight of the U.S. president. So I would hope that we'll be able to make that case, but it is not helpful having so much uncertainty in who's going to be at the negotiating table. That's why I still think that there should be an election. Let's get that solved sooner rather than later so we can get on with these important discussions.
And on your announcement today, obviously maybe a similar question, given the incoming threats with tariffs, why is it now a good time to be pushing for increased capacity in pipelines and doubling oil and gas production?
I think that energy is going to be key to getting a Canadian agreement that ensures that none of our products are subject to tariffs. One of the arguments that I've been making is that because we're such a large commodity provider to the United States, they accept our relatively low-cost oil and natural gas and timber and food products and critical minerals, and then they value add that and sell their product to the world, of which Canada is the biggest buyer. So that's a very constructive relationship to have. And I think that by demonstrating that, as the U.S. president talks about with his other international trading partners, he wants them to buy more American oil and gas. In order for that to happen, they have to make sure that they take a North American-wide approach so that we can also provide them with the product that they need in order to have that kind of global energy dominance. So I think that energy is absolutely essential to the Americans achieving that goal, and that's regardless of who happens to be the Prime Minister. Alberta owns a resource. We own 85% of the resource in the province. We export 4.3 million barrels a day to the U.S. That's 56% of what the Americans import. Other provinces export to them a relatively smaller amount, but we think that we are crucial in being able to meet that foundational American aspiration, and then be able to make the argument that we shouldn't have tariffs on any Canadian goods altogether because of this important partnership that we have.
Laurence Tachereau with Radio Canada. My colleagues asked really good questions, so I only have one for Mr. Ebel. About today's news, the news of the day, how would you reflect on Trudeau's relationship, legacy with the oil patch?
Sure. Well, we work, as I said off the top, we work with many countries, 43 states, 8 provinces. So we work with everybody. And, look, the Prime Minister and the Premier and governments of different stripes on both sides of the border have been really supportive of things like Line 5, which is critical for refineries on both sides of the border, including Montreal. So, whoever comes in, I expect them to still be supportive of development of these critical assets. I mean, this is the connection to the United States. This creates an opportunity for the United States to project soft power through exports. What comes in from Canada gives the United States opportunity. So, look, we'll work with everybody, and I think the Premier's pointed out a number of great things today in terms of permit reform, and so I look forward to a new administration, both a new leader, and then eventually there'll be an election and whatever administration comes in.
Thank you. I lied. I guess I had another question for you, Premier. Sorry. Just to confirm, you mentioned that there would be no dollars put in, so no investment will be needed for this new working group. It's going to be investment-free from Albertans?
Yeah, the mechanism that we're using is by guaranteeing that we will have a certain number of barrels on the pipeline. If you look at the way pipelines normally get built, the pipeline company goes around and signs people up. And once they get a certain number of producers saying, yeah, we're willing to sign long-term contracts with you, that's when they are able to go to the market and get the capital they need to build. So we're first in, and we're quite happy to negotiate with Enbridge a significant amount of barrels that would be the first in, what that would need to be to send the message to other producers as well as the market. But our intention would be to provide that guarantee as a mechanism to show how serious we are about getting these lines built. I can see if Greg has more to comment on that.
Yeah, no, I think that's bang on. And again, unlike in the past when there was direct dollars put in to build the pipeline, this is only going to happen if a pipeline's there and the production's there. And I think that's the Premier's leadership in pushing that production forward will important, as it is our relationships with our customers, both upstream and downstream.
Great. We'll now go to the phones. We only have time for a couple more questions. So operator, first caller, please.
Our first question is from Chris Farco from the Calgary Herald. Please go ahead.
Hi, this is a question for Greg. Greg, as a company that operates on both sides of the American and Canadian border, are you worried about what impact potential tariffs would have on the energy relationship between the two countries? And specifically, what impact could tariffs have on Enbridge?
Yeah, sure. Look, I'm always concerned about that. Anything that might change the trade flows and stuff like that, we're focused on. That being said, I think, if they do come in, and I think the Premier's doing everything she can to say why that may not be in the interest of the United States, particularly when it comes to oil and gas, that product's still going to be needed. And that product comes from here. Our pipelines pick up product from other basins in the United States, feeding refineries, and as I said, ultimately the Gulf Coast. So it is not my preferred route, but the product will flow. It will be utilized, and I think the issue is just the changing cost dynamics of the use of those products. But the infrastructure is going to be needed just as it has been for the last 75 years.
And just a follow-up question for the Premier. Premier, I'm wondering if you could comment, what do you see, given the announcement today of the legacy of the Prime Minister when it comes to energy development, specifically oil and gas development in this country over the last 9 years? And what difference do you think it will make to see him step down on future oil and gas development?
Well, let me start with the positive. So on the positive side, the Trudeau government did ensure that the 1977 pipeline treaty was respected and did a lot of work to ensure that the Line 5 pipeline did not get shut down, which would have been devastating for the U.S., but also devastating for Ontario and Quebec as well. So I would say that is one way in which his intervention was very positive. The fact that Coastal GasLink and Trans Mountain Pipeline managed to get to the finish line is really important, surprising probably to a lot of people because Trans Mountain was a long process, an expensive process, but it's already proven its worth by stabilizing the price of Western Canada Select and narrowing the differential. And I think we'll see something equally encouraging once Coastal GasLink and the LNG Canada starts exporting. That being said, we could have done so much more. We could have, with federal leadership, potentially got Energy East built. Part of the reason they pulled the plug on that was that they couldn't see a way through to the finish line, even though they'd spent $1 billion. We could have already been well underway with a Northern Gateway, which would be, I think, the most significant egress from our country, exporting off the coast of British Columbia. We could have, with greater leadership, potentially had the Prime Minister make a case for Keystone XL, which would have been well on the way to getting the largest producer of heavy oil attached to the largest production or refining capacity in the Gulf Coast, and that none of that happened. So we had, I think, something like 18 LNG projects that had been put forward. Only one of them is nearing completion. So I think that tells you something, a couple of things about how vitally important this product still is to the world, how vitally important it is to Canada, that even with all the barriers put in the way, somehow the industry managed with the regulators to find their way through. But you can just imagine how different it would be if we had a federal government that was actually supportive of our aspirations to double our oil and gas production, to displace oil and gas from other more hostile regimes, to be a true partner in North American energy security. And so we think it's a new day. So that's why it's been a long time since anyone was prepared to talk about new pipeline production, new pipeline access. And this, I think, is going to be the first of many. And we're prepared to lead that discussion.
Okay, operator, we have time for one more question. So last caller, please.
The next question is from Robert Wolf from Bloomberg. Please go ahead.
Have we got him?
Robert, you're there? Operator, is Robert on the line? There you go.
Like he's still on the line because disconnected.
Okay, Robert, well, you send me an email and I'll get back to you. Operator, next caller, please.
The next question is from Janet French from CBC Edmonton. Please go ahead.
Hi there. Just a question for the Premier. So obviously you're not going to get that immediate election that you would like to see. Do you have any preference for the interim or next Liberal leader, Trudeau's replacement?
Well, I would support another political party, as you probably are not surprised to hear. But in the interim, I would hope that we have some stability in the voices that are at the table. Dominic LeBlanc has now been down to Mar-a-Lago. He's continued his relationships with the individuals he met there. He has an established relationship with all of the premiers. And so having at least that continuity in the interim, I would hope that we would be able to see. But I'm looking forward to the next Prime Minister being somebody who will support our aspirations to double our oil and gas production, remove the carbon tax, make sure that we do not have an emissions cap on production, which we know is a production cap, get rid of net zero vehicle mandates by 2026, get rid of net zero power mandates, stay in their own lane. So those would be that's my wish list of whoever happens to be the next Prime Minister.
And just to follow up, we were talking to Deborah Yedlin from the Calgary Chamber of Commerce, and she was talking about how really Canada needs this unified approach. And you've referenced going down to the U.S. For inauguration and to have meetings with stakeholders. If you're going it alone to try and stave off these tariffs, like what coordination are you going to be doing in advance with other premiers? We
already do a lot of coordination. Doug Ford is the lead of the Council of the Federation. We've had, I believe, 2 online meetings, 1 in-person meeting, and we are arranging for another online meeting on January the 8th. So I would say, and I'm in regular touch with Doug, so I would say that there's going to be a lot of coordination between the parties through the Council of the Federation, which seems to be the entity that has the most stability right now. I don't think that there's anyone at the table right now who's coming up for immediate election. So that's what I am hoping to do, is to listen to the concerns of all the other premiers and make sure that I'm reflecting that. That's what I do when I go on internet, when I go on U.S. media, is I talk in terms of what's good for Canada. Obviously, oil and gas is a really important point of leverage, I believe, but there's others. I mean, look at the auto manufacturing sector. It goes back and forth across the border, those parts, 6 or 7 times before a car is completed. You look at British Columbia. They have germanium as one of the critical minerals that China has identified as on an export ban. You can get it from BC. You can get antimony from Ontario. You can get gallium from Quebec. You can get uranium from Saskatchewan. In fact, Saskatchewan is a principal supplier of the world of uranium. 20% of the global uranium supply is provided by Canada, 7,000 tons per year, 85% of which we export, and we can do more. So So I would say that we have a very holistic approach that we can take with the strengths of every province and every territory. And it is going to be up to the provincial and territorial leaders to make that case. And I intend to be making that strongly.
Great. Thanks, everyone. That concludes our press conference today.
Thanks, everyone.